So we're still on Unit 2, delivering education and training, but learning outcome 4. So learning outcome 4 is be able to implement the minimum core when delivering inclusive teaching and learning. And we've only got 2 points. So 4.1 is analyze ways in which minimum core elements can be demonstrated when delivering inclusive teaching and learning. So we're just double checking that, yeah, we did learning outcome 3 on Monday, didn't we? And then 4.2 is apply minimum core elements in delivering inclusive teaching and learning. So I'll make my way and there. So just to start off, a couple of slides about core skills. So what is minimum core? Because I know that when we're working in the associate level, we have a wide range of responsibilities, but sometimes we don't come across a lot of the terminologies, or we don't get to really work off the national curriculum as much as we'd like to. So I thought just break a couple of things down. So I apologize if you already know most of this stuff, but it's just there as a backup. So with the minimum core, all teachers should have a knowledge and understanding of literacy, language, and numeracy. So when we're talking about core, it's just your speaking, your listening, your English, your maths, and your IT skills that we're doing. So these are all known as minimum core skills. And if you think about it, they're actually embedded within teaching on a daily basis, because if you're doing maths, you've got English embedded into it as well. You've got spelling and grammar embedded into it, reading, comprehension, because if you've got worded questions, your student is going to have to read them and understand them and have a comprehension of what they're talking about to be able to answer the question. So really, this is all completed within or included within your lessons. Sometimes you'll have a English lesson and or spelling lessons, and you might say to your students, oh, I want you to create spelling number 1. Spell this for me, spelling number 2. So you're still doing your maths with it as well, because you're doing your lists. So really, it's everywhere. And we do it quite unconsciously. But to develop ourselves, it's good to consciously do it to see what else we could do. So again, these can be often, so the core skills can be referred to as English, maths, and digital skills. So when you're doing this, you've just got to show that you've got a proficiency in developing and delivering these minimum core skills. And this does really help you to support your learners in a fantastic way, and also help you professionally, because you get a lot of different ideas and tips and tricks to be able to do things. So 4.1 is analyze ways in which minimum core elements can be demonstrated when delivering inclusive learning and teaching. So we're going to be looking at embedding maths, English, and ICT within your sessions. And again, like I said, this can be done on a daily basis. So whether you're a trainer, teacher, assessor, associate staff, or anybody who is there that just supports teaching, you know that we've got learning and assessment processes. And we really should make sure that we're proficient within this minimum core skills. I keep saying score. So it just rolls off your mouth, doesn't it?
It's okay.
Because it is, I mean, I can't even say how important it is to make sure that these skills are developed at an early age, especially, so that you get a good understanding. Because I've seen if you develop comprehension and reading and all of these at a young age, it really does make a big difference. Now, I've had learners where they were fantastic at English, maths, ICT, and so on, but they hadn't developed their comprehension, their understanding of what they were actually reading. So that can be, even at year 5, year 6 level, even at a high school level, that can be an issue. So it's something that, has to be done at an early age.
Yeah.
So I've got some ways that you can demonstrate the 4 minimum core skills. So you've got literacy, reading, writing, checking your spelling, grammar, punctuation, syntax of your own and learners' works. So just making sure that you've got all the basics there and that you're proofreading your work in a way. Language, speaking and listening. So you're embedding language by speaking and get them listening, and vice versa for the students as well. Numeracy, so carry out calculations, interpretations, evaluations, and measurements. Even if you have that 5 minutes while you're lining up for lunch and you're playing a maths game on your interactive whiteboard, you're still embedding it within that 5 minutes. You're doing ICT and maths, shapes, colors, reading, writing, speaking, listening. It's your turn. You come over. They're all paying attention and seeing, oh, did that person get it right? Or what's the pattern? I can do it myself. So you're doing all of that within such a compact space of time. And then you've got ICT, so you'll use e-learning activities, you'll have a virtual learning environment, emails, apps, video conferencing, and so on. So there's so many different ways that you can just have this embedded within a daily basis. Now, you will need to be making sure that you're meeting the needs of your learners. So again, the adaptation, so many things come into this. So you're doing adapting your work, you're differentiating, you don't want to do something that's too complicated for someone, or you don't want to make it too simple and make someone bored, because you'll demotivate them, or you'll hinder their learning, or they'll be like, oh, this is boring, I don't need to pay attention, I already know what to do. So even with these core skills, like everything else, there's so much planning and so much thought that needs to go into it. Now, I've got a couple of examples of how the minimum core can be embedded in. Now, these examples are more on a adult base, but they can be translated into the younger ones as well. Now, I like Hannah Gravels, and you'll come across her quite a lot, especially if you with this level 4 and level 5 course. And if you decide to go on to QTLS, you'll see her a lot there as well. Now, she's got a book called Principles and Practices of Teaching and Training. Now, I've bought this book, and there is absolutely no point in buying it. It's one of the most tedious reads that I've ever gone through, but the information is good. And the reason I say it's tedious is because it's just like, you're opening a newspaper and it's just words and words and words. There's no images, there's no, it's just like, I just didn't want to open the book after a while. Because I like seeing colourful things in front of me. I'm quite a visual learner. So for me, I didn't prefer it. But again, most of the things you can actually get online from Anne Gravels as well. Now, we've got some examples, like I was saying. Let's go on. So literacy. So you've got reading relevant internal and external guidance to ascertain the requirements for initial and diagnostic assessment. So this is what you would do for literacy. For example, if you've got a course, so you're going to look at what the guidance is. That for me, when I'm doing that this morning, I was spent a few hours making a PowerPoint for a new course that I'm going to be teaching in a couple of weeks. And I sat there, I looked at the specifications, and I made sure that I understood what they were, what my guidance was, and I went off that. With a student in mind, you'd actually look at what sort of initial assessments you need to do, what diagnostic assessments you need to do, and you'd tweak it and change it for that. Again, like I did this morning, I looked at the qualification specifications, I made notes, I checked what can be taught, how can I simplify this, how can I make it so that if my student was to go back and look at the PowerPoints themselves, they'd actually be able to understand things without me being there, without me having to explain. And that's a format that I like to take with everything that I make, that they're quite, you'll have noticed with my PowerPoints or my resources, they're quite simple. The bullet pointed, they're there with just the basic information, just so that they're easy to get on. And then again, you might want to look at doing templates and forms and check spelling, grammar, and so on there. So for language, you might want to speak about a learner's individual needs, actually have a conversation with them, ask them questions, ask them what they already know, what their experiences are, listen to their responses. Now, in a virtual world, we've already done this without me physically asking you questions. I asked you to fill in a personal development plan and a SWOT template, and you did both, so I was able to know what your knowledge is, what your background is, and get a little bit of knowledge myself as to where you're going towards, what your aims are. So it can be done depending on what sort of environment you're teaching in different ways. And then again, this is a good one for yourself within the classroom environment because you're going face to face. Listen to the questions, answer them appropriately, ask questions back again, find out that you've got the right information. So there are ways that you can do that. Numeracy. So how would we embed this? So you're going to calculate how long initial and diagnostic assessment activities will take. You know, is it going to take you 10 minutes to go through an assessment with a student, or will it take them a good hour to sit down and do this? Are they able to sit down for that long, or do you have to split it up and make the assessment shorter and do it in 3-4 chunks of time over a couple of days? Then you're going to plan how long your teaching will take, and you're going to think, right, I've got this activity here. It is quite heavily worded. It is going to be a little bit difficult to understand. I'm going to split it up, and I'm going to teach it over, instead of doing it all in 2 days, I'm going to teach it over a full week, so over 5 days as well, and just make it into more fun, accessible activities. And then you've got ICT. So you'll prepare online materials, you put them onto your VLE if you are doing an online, a virtual system like we are here. You put it onto any type, like we've got Moodle, we'll put them onto there. You'll be using word processors, applications, PowerPoints, create handouts, create resources. So again, even if you think that, when you think about putting core elements in, physically what comes to my mind is you sitting there and you showing someone how to do something on your interactive board, or using your computer, or using iPads and so on. But it's not just that, it's all the things that you have done as well to prepare for your lesson. All the handouts that you've done, the printing that you've done, all of that is included in ICT as well. Even using emails or doing a class register, all of these are within that. And again, sometimes we've got extra technology to support learning needs as well. So I've done a lot of talking and I've gone through the basic core elements and the styles and examples of how you can use things. Within this, is there any sort of examples or any sort of thing that you can remember of how you put the core elements into your teaching?
It's basically like well, it's hard to explain for me at the moment, but what I am understanding is that, like, when we are preparing or when we are planning and when we are teaching, how we are using these skills in our day-to-day, isn't it?
Yes. And so, it's how,
yeah, so like in literacy, then we are considering their age level, their communication skills, what language they can understand, and how they are absorbing what we are teaching, and how they are giving the output, understanding that level, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, within that, if you think that you've got students that have got a mid to low range of learning, and you want to go through steps, for your higher range students, you might actually physically spell out 1, 2, 3, the TWO, THREE, you know, like those. But for the learners that, you know, might not be able to read 2 or read 4 or 6, you might just physically want to use the numbers. So that is one very simple way of you changing and adapting it and putting maths into it, because they're learning to read their numbers, but you know what their abilities are and you're doing it in that way. And again, like the best example I can think of that has everything in it is when, for example, if you're doing a maths activity and you're doing something like halves or sharing or divides. So you've got on a piece of paper written out, typed, saying there are 2 children, they have 6 sweets. How many sweets do they get each? And then you've got a picture of 2 children and 2 bubbles, and then they can actually physically, you know, draw the sweets inside those little bubbles, can't they? But they've physically got to be able to read, there are 2 children. Instead of having SIX for 6, you'll have the number 6 there instead. So you've got a mix of numbers, maths, And then it really does help them. You're doing a whole load of mix of your core elements within that in itself.
Okay.
And you might even use your whiteboard to actually, demonstrate to them and say, okay, you might drag one suite into one box and say, come on, let's work together. And that'll help them as well for ICT.
Okay.
But now that you know about it, when you go back into the school, you'll be like, oh, we do this on a daily basis, just that I never really knew to focus on it.
Yes.
So are you okay on that section? Do you want to go over anything again?
No, I think it should be fine.
So how I would like you to answer this is carry out a detailed analysis of the ways in which the core elements can be demonstrated. So first, talk about what the minimum core elements are. So English, language, so speaking, language, maths and ICT. And then talk about how they can be demonstrated when you're delivering inclusive teaching and learning. So how do you put in English, maths and ICT in your classroom environment? So you could use an example, like I said, when you're doing a maths activity, how you would do it. So some other examples I've got is you might want to talk about having written handouts or typed handouts here. When you're making presentations, you use ICT and then you present them and you talk about them. You use technology. You might use the projector to to show them you physically working things out. You might want to do counting and writing, on your fingers and verbally speaking and listening to them. So just a whole load of ways of how you support in a way, it's just what you do on a normal basis as well, but just focus on the different techniques that you have within those activities. Because you said you do quite a lot of maths interventions, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, just think about how when you've got shapes there, sometimes you'll write something on the whiteboard, won't you? Sometimes you'll verbally say it. Sometimes you physically use particular items and say, right, sort this out for me, put this on a piece of paper. So in a way, just talk about what you do within those sessions there.
Okay.
So 4.2 is apply minimum core elements in delivering inclusive teaching and learning. So on here, we're just going to talk about what is embedding about. What does embedding mean? So when you're teaching within your environment, regardless of your role, there's going to be lots of opportunities to help you to improve maths, English, and digital skills and help your students within that. Now, when we do this, it's called embedding. So we like to include these embedding skills as part of our specialist subject. In your case, primary in whole is your specialist subject. So you're going to treat all of this as one thing rather than separate subjects. So like I said, you're not going to think, oh, I've done a maths activity, now I must put IT into it, or now I must put English into it. It comes unconsciously. You do it without even realizing it. Like when you create your handouts or you choose a particular game to do in phonics, you've got your reading, your ICT into that. So before you can do this, sometimes you need to update your own skills and your knowledge in these areas. Just it makes you comfortable to do these. Now, a lot of these things I do unconsciously. I don't even think about, am I doing maths in here? Am I doing English? Am I doing ICT skills? Have I really listened to my students? Am I asking them questions? These things happen without even realizing it. But again, it's nice to know some bits and bobs to be able to support you in that. So these skills have a lot of names. So core elements are known in lots of different ways depending on where you are, if you're doing young learning or if you're doing adult learning. So they can be called basic skills, skills for life, core skills, key skills, essential skills, and functional skills. And have you heard of any of these ones before?
Yes.
They're quite common, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes. Like functional skills, basically they consider as English and math.
Yes.
And ICT, isn't it?
That's true. And then you get your ESOL, you get your level 1, level 2, and so on. You get quite a lot of entry levels as well. So there's a few different stages within all of these too.
Yes.
Now, opportunities to embed skills. I've got actually some examples of how this can be done. I think the reason I use these examples are because they really pinpoint how they can be done on a daily basis. So again, these opportunities come naturally, but you've got some examples here. So, for example, if you're teaching cookery, so you've got a class and it can be aimed for adults or for children, really. So you're teaching a cooking lesson. So your English will be embedded by reading the recipe. You might want to send your students on like a little search and say, okay, do a bit of research, go online, tell me what's the best way to make a sandwich. Or I know for Year 5 and Year 6 students, it's quite a popular lesson where they make jam sandwiches and then they eat them or they'll decorate cookies and things. So you can get them to do research. You can link a healthy eating activity or lesson to it as well. You can have magazines and books. You can plan a menu. I remember my last food style lesson that we did, we were going to make fruit salads. We spent a good week talking about the healthy eating and different types of fruits and so on. And at the end of the week, we bought a whole load of fruit. It was very messy. Spent ages cutting them up. The teacher made her own fruit salad. I put them into little separate containers, handed them out, and then the kids had a lot of fun just picking and choosing what fruits they wanted. And then in a way, they had everything. They were allowed to use 4 or 5 different ingredients, and then they were allowed to talk about it afterwards and explain exactly why they chose those things. So it was a way of embedding a lot of core skills into that. Then you got maths. You can embed maths into cooking is by calculating weight. So if you're making a cake, you might want to say, I'm going to use 500 grams of flour, 500 grams of sugar, 2 eggs, those type of things. How much it costs. You might want to break down. So a package of eggs costs this much, flour this much in total, but you've only used a quarter of those. You can make 4 cakes out of them. So how many cakes can you make out of? What is the cost of 1 cake? So that's a good bit of calculations there.
Okay.
And then also cooking times. How long is it going to take? What temperature do I need to be on? So, and then it goes on to digital skills. You might want to use a computer, a word processor. You might want to print a menu out. You physically might want to research something before you tell your students to do it. You might email your learners and say, right, this week we're going to be cooking ratatouille or whatever it is, pasta. And here's the ingredients list. Just get familiar with them. You might do a presentation, or you might physically just show them and show them a video and do step by step with them. Take photos, make videos, and put them onto your learning environment and say, today my class cooked this, for parents and things to see. So does this little example, does it help in breaking things up?
Yeah.
I have one more example. And that's for example, if you're teaching plumbing. So this is a bit more on the adult side. But if you're teaching a plumbing class, your English is you're going to teach your plumbers, your students, to talk to customers, talk to suppliers, go and physically source out equipment, read manuals, see what sort of parts go with other parts, look at materials. Maths would be the measuring pipes. They're going to see how much they need to cut with a pipe cutter. What sort of material are they going to need for one particular house that they're doing the whole heating system for? They'd have to figure out how much things cost for them, what the prices are, what VAT is, what's my overall material cost, what's my labor cost, and how much can I charge them, so that, create an estimate and then actually write a receipt out for an invoice. And then digital skills are they might want to go on the phone, on the internet, find out, go onto Stacks or Screwfix or whatever and see who is the best price, where can I get this bundle of pipes from, is an independent retailer better, or so on. They're probably going to email suppliers and say, right, I've ordered this and I've got one piece missing. Get invoices, word processor printed out, use spreadsheets for products and prices. Might want to create a website or even create one of those company cards that they can give out. You know, so before and after pictures. So there's so many skills that can be taught. When you think about teaching plumbing or teaching cooking, you just think, oh, it's only pipe work. It's only teaching them how to put heaters on or connect a boiler, or it's only making a cake. But it's not. It's so many different things that are within that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, are you okay so far? Because I know there's a lot. Yeah. So when you are putting these skills in during your lesson time, just make sure that you're putting in realistic things and that it's quite relevant. Now, the cooking example was relevant because we both adults, we know we do cooking, and we know that we have children in schools that do have cooking lessons as well. Especially when they get a little bit older. The plumbing one for me is relevant because I'm very familiar with the plumbing side. I've got family members that do plumbing, and I'm constantly doing those things. And so just make sure that whatever you're talking about is realistic, is relevant, and that you're doing something that your learners will actually engage with, that they're familiar with, and it's a real situation within your subject area. Because there's no point in doing one subject and then start talking about something else that they don't even know about. You'll confuse them. Now, embedding these things is very easy in practical lessons. In theoretical lessons, especially as within primary school, your lessons are a lot more practical. You get like a good basis of, even if you're doing a theoretical lesson like history, you'll still have a bit of practical elements that will go into it. But as you go into the older groups, you get a lot more theoretical, like English literature, language, geography, and so on. It can be hard to embed these math skills, especially within those. So you have to get quite imaginative and see how much you can stretch it and how you could actually do it. So ways that you're going to do this for theoretical lessons. And I know that my students used to really get motivated with this. Make deliberate spelling or grammar or punctuation mistakes. Now, for younger students, it's best to make spelling mistakes because they might not understand the grammatical or punctuation errors. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, make sure that you just say to them, right, there's a mistake in here. Do you think you can find it? But make sure that it's only the odd one, that there's only one or something that there's, and you can say, I've got one mistake. Who can find it? And that's fine. But if you say to them, I've got mistakes in there, and they think, oh, the full sheet must be full of mistakes, and they're going to get distracted, aren't they? So keep it quite minimum. Mm-hmm. And you have to warn them that they're there. Otherwise, they're going to think, oh, this is the right spelling, and then they'll model it, they'll copy what you've done. Now, this is more for when you come on to, like, when you're looking at homework, especially, or you're looking at students' classwork. Look at their work, look at their written work, and if there's any errors that they've got on a particular word, point that sentence out to them. Don't fix it. Don't tell them what it is. Say to them, there's a mistake here in this sentence. Can you find it? Can you fix it? If they can't find it, just talk to them about it, and then see if you can get another person sitting next to them and say, oh, okay, do you think you can see that spelling mistake or that mistake that's in here? Then you're engaging them, and they're all looking and reading through the work, and they're trying to find it. If they can't find it at the end, then just help them out and say, oh, here it is, and what do you think is the correct spelling? So there are fun ways that you can do things as well. So during sessions, you also need to make sure that you use technology appropriately. So don't access unsuitable sites or check emails or play games, or students love, especially when they get a piece of technology in their hands, they will go and do something else. They'll start, if they're older, they'll start checking the emails or going on Facebook. The younger ones will probably start playing games. But within the school system, I know that you're quite restricted on what you can watch because of the data protection and the restrictions that are in place. So there's probably a lot of things on here that you won't have to worry about. But the most thing that you'll probably worry about is when you're doing a task using the iPads, for example, and they start opening up another game and playing it. You've got to keep an eye on that. So that was 4.2, how we're going to apply these core elements. Are you okay on this section?
Well, I think so. I'm getting it.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just one of those things that you do on a daily basis, and I know you do it because it's something that I did as a TA as well, but you don't know that you're actually doing it because it's never had a name to it. We're not familiar with certain things, and then when you carry on going through these, you start working on it and writing it down, you'll be like, actually, yeah, I do. You'll reflect later on in a couple of weeks when you're back, and you'll say, yeah, I do it actually, and I never realized it. So how I'd like you to answer this one, I just want you to explain using a detailed example how you apply minimum core elements in delivering teaching and inclusive teaching and learning. So just tell me about what you do. So choose an example of a time you supported your intervention group, for example. Tell me what you do. How do you actually do it? And what sort of resources do you use? So for your maths lessons, what are you doing in your maths lessons? What are you actually teaching? And then tell me how you teach it. Are you teaching it using just a whiteboard? Do you get to use an interactive whiteboard? Do you play games? Do you use physical resources? Do you talk to your students and ask them questions? Do you answer them? Do they answer you? So it's about interacting with them as well, how you interact and how you respond to them. Do you teach them? Sometimes I know what I do unconsciously when I'm trying to get my students engaged. I'll use my hands a lot and I'll be counting on my fingers, so you've got your maths into that as well. So there's lots of different way you're verbally speaking. That's your English. The handouts that you've used, that's your ICT. If you're using an iPad to support or show a video or the interactive whiteboard, that again is ICT again. So these things you do on a daily basis, just use your example and then go into detail about, instead of going into detail about how children are responding to you, like, we do how behavior and all that, just go into detail about how you physically implement all of this.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
An example of, even though if it's an kind of experience we were doing where we were not involved in writing?
Yeah. But just if it's something that you've seen somebody else do or it's experience, just do it as if you do it. Just change it to you being the main lead.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be a big deal if you say that my class teacher does this or that, but it's about applying, so it means like you physically doing it yourself. So it's better if you just tweak it and change it as if you were the one that planned it and you were the one that did it.
Okay.
Yeah. So did that make sense? Was it okay about what you need to do?
Yes.
Brilliant. I will. Let's see. So let's turn this off.